Good evening, welcome to North West Tonight with Annabelle Tiffin. Our top story, doomed for the winter. A paramedic from the North West Ambulance Service says Arrowe Park Hospital in Wirral is at breaking point.
We're talking down 2 to 3 corridors deep with patients. Ambulance staff being asked to look after the patients. We're literally at breaking point, and it's not even the winter yet.
He tells us that patients are waiting outside in ambulances for up to 10 hours. Also tonight, the family from Manchester stuck in Lebanon with little prospect of a flight out of the war.
I'm at tonight's huge Super League playoff with Salford Red Devils welcoming Lee Leopards with a place in the semi-finals at stake in front of a huge crowd.
As Strictly welcomes its first blind contestant, we meet the Manchester man who's been leading the way.
I was the first blind person to ever qualify to compete at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool. It meant the absolute world, and I just thought if my father could see me now.
And this butterfly and bee have enjoyed much better weather conditions than we saw yesterday. Sunshine, but chilly. Join me at the end of the programme, we'll find out what's going on for the weekend.
A paramedic from the North West Ambulance Service says Arrowe Park Hospital in Wirral is at breaking point and appears doomed for the winter. He says patients are sometimes stuck in ambulances for up to 10 hours. The hospital trust says it has systems to prioritise patient safety. Andy Gill reports.
At Arrowe Park Hospital this lunchtime, there were 6 ambulances outside A&E. But NHS data we've seen showed that earlier in the day there were 10 with a waiting time of 10 hours. We've interviewed the paramedic anonymously and we've changed his voice. He wanted to speak out now because he's so concerned at the pressures A&E departments and paramedics are under when we're still months away from the usual winter pressures.
When I say queuing up, we're not talking 4 or 5 trolleys. We're talking down 2 to 3 corridors deep with patients. Ambulance staff being asked to look after the patients because the hospitals don't have the staffing to do that. That has a knock-on effect, obviously, because our ambulances are unable to respond to emergencies. We're literally at breaking point, and it's not even the winter yet.
He says the problem is caused by staff shortages at the hospital and a lack of beds because patients can't get the care packages that would allow them to be discharged.
People will die because they're not going to get the ambulance when they call for that ambulance. We've already seen it across the country. We've got contingency plans. Well, they're not working, obviously.
In a statement, the trust that runs Arrowe Park Hospital said it's experienced extremely high levels of attendance at A&E. It says it has systems in place to prioritise patient safety and ensure ambulance crews are released as quickly as possible to respond to community emergencies. The Trust says it's made significant progress in discharging patients who need ongoing care through a new transfer of care hub and other initiatives.
Wirral Council Social Care says it's doing everything it can to ensure timely support for Arrowe Park. The paramedic says the problems there and elsewhere are not the fault of hospital staff. He wants better pay in the care industry to attract more staff there and allow quicker discharges, but accepts that's not a quick fix. He also suggests COVID-era Nightingale-style hospitals could be used.
This winter, I think, is probably going to be one of our worst. If we have another pandemic, we won't cope. We won't cope as a service, as an NHS. We won't cope. And that's for someone that's been in this job for a very long time.
Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight.
Next tonight, a mum of 2 from Manchester says she's stuck in Lebanon and increasingly worried about the safety of her children. Mahasan Al-Dada, who moved there a year ago, has been advised by the UK government to leave immediately after Israel launched airstrikes. But there are currently no flights available, and she's also torn between going and leaving her husband behind, as Phil Cunliffe reports.
According to local officials, Israeli airstrikes have killed around 800 people in Lebanon since Monday. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah terrorists to remove their threat. But it's also left ordinary families fearing for their lives.
I live in Mount Lebanon, but even from my house, we can hear the explosions during the day and during the night as well. I didn't sleep for over 24 hours. I was awake over 48 hours. I was awake because of all the sounds.
Maha's son, who's been in Lebanon since July 2023, is worried about her children, 6-year-old Sultan and Saif, who's 5.
I don't want to traumatise my children when they don't need to be traumatised. So I started looking for commercial flights. But when I was looking for flights, that's when I was told everything is cancelled.
Some flights with Middle East Airlines are leaving for London, but Maha's son says there are no seats available until at least the 8th of October. Even then, she's not sure if she actually wants to go, as that would mean leaving behind her Lebanese husband, Jad.
He's got his family here. His dad is really old. He's got his mum. His dad is sick. So he's got his brothers, his sisters. He's got his business here. He can't leave all that behind. And also, even if we do go, let's say for a week or two, but we don't know how long it's going to be.
Are you feeling scared about the situation?
Tell him if you feel scared.
I'm not scared.
He's not scared. He said he's not scared. Just because their dad is always telling them, like, don't be scared. And I'll be honest, we haven't really explained what's going on. We always say it's just fireworks. We always say it's something different to what it is.
The conflict in Lebanon led to the cancellation of her eldest son's first day at school last week. Things are getting worse, but the dilemma remains. Should they stay or should they go?
I'm not sure what to do at all, and I don't know what's best. I want what's best for me and my family, not only for us, and it feels a little bit selfish to me that I'm taking my children and leaving my husband behind. But if that's what I have to do, then it's what I have to do. I've never been in this situation, so to me, it feels like I'm in a dream, in a bad dream. Like, it feels so surreal. I still can't even wrap my head around anything that's happening.
Phil Cunliffe, BBC Northwest Tonight.
A lorry driver who ran over and killed a homeless woman sleeping on a pavement in Liverpool has been jailed for a year. Alex Kieran from Bamber Bridge admitted causing death by careless driving after his back wheels fatally injured Nicola Cummings. The 24-year-old was asleep in her sleeping bag. Kieran was trying to park on a petrol station forecourt and thought he'd seen an empty duvet and bin bag. The partner of Nicola Bulley, who went missing while walking her dog, has described the online obsession with her disappearance as a monster that got out of control. The 45-year-old was found in the River Wyre 3 weeks after vanishing in January last year. The search to find her sparked worldwide coverage. In a new BBC documentary, Nicola's family shares the impact of the intense online conspiracies.
When you experience something like this, you realise what a huge monster it can be, I guess. I was getting direct messages from people that I've never met, and you can't do anything about it.
The emergency services were called to Windermere last night after reports that several children were in the water when a boat capsized. The search involved Coast Guard teams from Furness and Arnside, mountain rescue volunteers, lake wardens and the Great North Air Ambulance Service. Fortunately, they discovered the incident only involved one person, who they found sitting on top of an upturned vessel. A horse riding school in Liverpool has been granted charitable status. There had been fears that Park Palace Ponies in Dingle would have to close because of a lack of funding, but in a post on social media, bosses say the status has helped to secure their future. And a fundraiser has walked 200 miles along the Manx coastline to mark the 200th anniversary of the RNLI. Angie Rook covered the island's coastal pathway twice over 13 days to raise money for the charity. Now, a coroner has ruled neglect by staff at Royal Preston Hospital caused the death of a woman who died of an asthma attack after sitting in a chair for 39 hours. Marina Young from Ribbleton was waiting to be admitted into intensive care. The hospital trust has been accused of taking insufficient action since her death 2 years ago. Phil McCann reports.
Marina had the spinal condition spina bifida, but her family say she refused to let it define her.
Marina Young had the most courageous determination I've ever seen anybody in my life. She made me a nurse. She was my big sister, and everything that happened to her, I can't unsee or unthink or anything, the thought of the trauma that she went through.
Marina's condition did mean she'd sometimes have serious asthma attacks. When she had one 2 years ago, she went to Royal Preston Hospital and was admitted to the intensive care unit. But she had to wait here in accident and emergency, where she stayed in a chair for more than a day and a half. She was found dead in the chair.
I am so traumatised. The thought of her suffering for minimally an extra 24 hours, in my mind, suffocating for 24 hours more than she had to.
The coroner heard medical staff had failed to refer Marina to more senior doctors and nurses and failed to do basic checks. And some of those senior staff took too long to see her and also failed to do basic checks. Serious errors, he said, which were extremely worrying, with explanations that he said were wholly inadequate.
The failures that Marina faced, being sat unable to breathe in a chair for 39 hours, dying in the same clothes that she came into hospital in, it's a particularly hard-hitting case for everyone involved.
When she was in A&E, Marina wasn't given the help to use the toilet that she needed when having an attack, and wasn't given help to remove her shoes, which could cause her acute pain. Records, though, said her hygiene needs had been met. Records which the coroner said were a tick-box exercise. The hospital trust here has carried out its own investigation into what happened, and that produced a series of recommendations. But the coroner today criticised that and said that insufficient progress has been made by the trust since Marina's death, meaning, he said, there appears to be a risk of other deaths occurring in similar circumstances. Tonight, the trust apologised for the failings, saying it welcomes the independent scrutiny of the coroner and stressing it's committed to the further actions and learning identified by the inquest.
We don't go into hospital because we're well, we go because we need help. And when them staff members do not provide the help needed, we need it from the top.
The coroner will now prepare a report outlining what needs to be done to prevent someone else dying the same kind of preventable death as Marina. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Preston.
Now, plans to add VAT to private school fees will go ahead from January, the Labour conference heard this week. The government says some pupils with a formal health plan for special educational needs will still get their fees paid. But one local school says none of its pupils will qualify and the state sector might struggle to help. Here's Kevin Fitzpatrick.
The smaller class sizes at Hume Hall are one of its main attractions for parents of children with extra educational needs. This mixed school has 166 pupils from year 7 to 11, with class sizes of 16 to 18. The headmaster believes it's one of the main benefits of what they offer.
The focus for us is very much on the individual, a caring, nurturing approach that allows us to focus on each person as an individual.
There are just under 300 independent schools in the northwest, catering for 50,000 children. A fifth of them are judged by their school to have special educational needs, but 2/3 of those wouldn't qualify for extra support in the state system. Parents like Rachel, whose son Scott is in year 9, are currently paying nearly £14,000 a year to send their children here. She thinks he'd really struggle in a state school.
There's a lot of hard-working parents here that actually sacrifice an awful lot to put the children into the independent sector, and it's not just because they can afford to do so and the wealth side of it, it's about the right choice for the child.
Removing the exemption that private schools have had on paying VAT was in the Labour manifesto, and in government the party has said it intends to go ahead with a policy that appeared popular at conference this week.
This government will introduce VAT on private school fees to invest in our state schools. It is the fair choice, the responsible choice, the Labour choice to support the 94% of our children in our state schools. That is the Britain we're building. That is the Britain that I believe in.
The Independent Schools Council claims the policy will disrupt education for thousands of pupils. Hume Hall is hoping to absorb some of the cost, but it'll mainly be passed on to parents.
I think there's been a big misconception, or you could say opinions may vary, that independent schools are full of money. They're Eton and Harrowe and there's lots of money and they can cushion this extra money that parents may to find. And that's not the case with us.
The government told us ending tax breaks on private schools will raise revenue that will be invested back into essential public services, so every child gets the best start in life. Parents of children here say they have a difficult decision to make.
I think next year you'll see a big impact as of January going forward for the new term.
Kevin Fitzpatrick, BBC North West Tonight, Stockport.
Well, we'll be discussing that, as well as the regeneration of Old Trafford and if some of the region's big infrastructure projects will get dumped because of a lack of money, on Politics Northwest this Sunday, BBC One at 10 o'clock. OK, we're moving on to sport now. It's a huge weekend for 4 of our Super League teams in the end-of-season playoffs, starting with Salford against Leigh this evening. Richard is there for us. Richard, I don't know, is it fair to say that these two, obviously very competitive, but possibly the underdogs in this competition?
It's a 50-50 game, I think, Annabelle, and there is plenty of tension with so much at stake. As you can see, some of the fans have already started to come in. Talking to both sets of supporters, they are tense, they're pumped up. There is a place in the semi-finals at stake. The lads say I'm joined by the head coach of Salford Red Devils, Paul Rowley. Great to see you, Paul. A record crowd tonight, more than 10,000, nearly a sellout. How determined are you to put on a show for them?
As determined as ever. We always get a good crowd here, and you know, they're a noisy bunch with 4,000, so 10,000 on is going to be a real cup final sort of atmosphere, because I know Leigh have come in numbers as well, so it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be a brilliant atmosphere, brilliant game. You rested well, your whole team more or less in the last regular game against Wigan. How much of an advantage do you think that's going to give you?
Well, the advantage is it ensures that I've got a full team out. So it was an unnecessary risk not to rest them. And like I always say, my objective is to make sure I've got a fit team. That's the one objective I had, and I've got no issues. We're good.
Yeah, you're all fit and well. There is a lot at stake tonight. Have you got any secrets up your sleeve? Actually, it wouldn't be a secret if you told me, would it? I tell you what, I'll ask that in a better way, Paul. Have you, because you know each other so well, have you got any surprises tonight?
No surprises. It's knockout football now, so I think you'll see everything tighten up a little bit. You know, the little things done well for the longest period of time is generally the narrative that both coaches will give. So we're no different. It's tough now. It's a slightly different type of game, and they're always tight at first, and no quarter will be given, I can assure you of that.
Do you wish you were still out there?
Oh, I was born to be a player, not a coach. Coach is second to playing always, so I've been fortunate enough to play. But yeah, I guess the body couldn't take it now. They're pretty special, these players.
You could still do it. All right, Paul, thanks very much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Rolls. Thanks very much indeed. We're going to hear from the head coach of Leigh Leopards hopefully in a moment. But let's talk about the Premier League. First of all, Manchester United host Spurs on Sunday. Tomorrow, Everton will be hoping for their first win of the season. The Blues welcome Crystal Palace with the top two on the road. Liverpool at Wolves, Manchester City at Newcastle. City will have to do without their talismanic player, their midfielder Rodri, for the whole season, I'm afraid. The Blues have confirmed that he's torn his anterior cruciate ligament. He did that in the 2-2 draw against Arsenal last weekend.
Got surgery this morning. This season is over. What he gave us, we don't have a similar player. We have to do it as a team, and we have to find a way.
Well, in the Women's Super League, the Champions League, Manchester City women, they cruised through to the group stages, winning 8-0 on aggregate against Paris FC. Their reward for that, a very tough group. They've got the holders Barcelona. They also face SKN St. Pölten from Austria and the Swedish side Hammarby. Tonight, by the way, in League Two, Tranmere Rovers welcome Salford City. In the cricket, the weather isn't helping Lancashire, I'm afraid. It's a must-win game for Lancs in the county championship at Worcestershire. No play today at all. The home side are on 119 for 7. Lancs need to win if they're going to stand any chance of avoiding relegation from Division 1. Let's hope the weather does do its bit tomorrow. The forecast is better. I'm just looking for Adrian Lamb, the head coach of Lee Leopards. I can't see him at the moment. I tell you what, we'll wander over here. We'll see if we can see him. I can't see him, but I tell you what I can see over there. You'll see that the Salford fans, they're really starting to gather in numbers. This is a huge game, Annabelle, as I mentioned, for both Salford and for Lee Leopards. It will be a great game. Place in the semi-finals at stake. The losers go out. It will be tense, as I mentioned. Adrian is here somewhere, but unfortunately I can't talk to him for now, but I know he'll say just what a big game this is for Lee Leopards as well. Tomorrow, by the way, I should mention, a huge playoff game as well between Warrington Wolves and St Helens. It's the first playoff game that's live on the BBC, BBC 2 at 5:30 tomorrow. From here, it will be tense, I promise. Back to you.
Thanks, Richard. It feels tense. I can feel the tension. But, yeah, thank you very much for that. It is going to be a big match, as you say. Probably, you know, he was getting ready, wasn't he? He's got a big match ahead of him. He hasn't got time to talk to us. Right. Liverpool-born comedian Chris McCausland has swapped his punchlines for Paso Dobles on a Saturday night as he takes part in the BBC's Strictly Come Dancing. He's the first registered blind contestant on the show and has been really impressing judges and the audiences alike. Following his progress very closely is a Manchester dancer who hopes Chris will get more people with impaired vision to dance. Mairead Smith reports.
The mass of the feet, then I could apply that to the funk in my body. I started with salsa and modern jive, which I always say to people to start with, especially anybody with a disability or something, because it's so inclusive, it's easy to learn, and it gets you confident.
But he only started lessons in the last couple of years.
It's inspirational. If you're teaching him anything and he hasn't quite got it, he wants you to go over it and over it and over it until he does actually get it. So he's such a positive person. And to be perfectly honest, he's actually educated me as well whilst I've been teaching him.
Sean also suffers from Charles Bonnet syndrome, which causes hallucinations, common in people who lose their sight.
When I was about 25, that's when I really noticed that I'd lost someone's face, and that was heartbreaking, to be honest. I'm constantly hallucinating, and that's because when you've seen in the past, you can get this condition because the visual cortex is just playing up, going, well, I want to see things. And when I'm dancing, it helps me to just be in that moment. So the hallucinations ride with me rather than coming at me.
He started to compete and has even danced at the Home of Ballroom.
I was the first blind person to ever qualify to compete at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool. It meant the absolute world. And I just thought, if my father could see me now, he'd always wanted me to dance.
The last year has been tough because of injury and illness. Sean's guide dog Kev has got him through the tough times.
He's been amazing. The last time I stayed in hospital, I decided Kev was going to stay with me. It was just great to have him with me as just the therapy of it all, not just a guide dog.
Sean wants others to take up dancing today.
I want people, whatever their issue is, if you've got social anxiety, especially after COVID, dancing will break that for you. As they say, dance like no one's looking. I always do. Just, yeah, follow my lead.
Mairead Smith, BBC Northwest Tonight, Manchester.
He's right. I mean, it's brilliant to dance, isn't it? It does make you feel better, but I am absolutely rubbish at it. I'm nothing like him, so I wouldn't be able to be that good. Do you watch Strictly? I do. I mean, I've saw that Chris doing his bit last Saturday. Absolutely fantastic.
I love it. I like it when they're in the ballroom in Blackpool.
Yeah,
That's the best one for me.
And actually, we mustn't forget lovely Kevin the dog.
I love it when dogs have got real names.
Yes,
I know,
real people's names.
Anyway, I love the weather today. Despite the breeze, it has been quite blustery, hasn't it? But we've had so many gorgeous photos come in of sunshine and dry weather. So thank you so much for sending these in. Ambleside, Maggie, thank you for sending that one in. Beautiful photograph. And in Whalley Range as well in Manchester, look at that, gorgeous blue skies. Like I said, though, it has been a blustery day, but plenty of sunshine in that chilly air had took the edge off, didn't it, a little bit? Thank you for sending those photos in. If you would like to join me, then you can follow me on socials. Here you go. Or become a weather watcher like they did and send me your photos. Let me know what the weather conditions are like where you are. So, Today it's been cold and blustery. This weekend it's going to be less cold, less windy. We are looking at a decent amount of sunshine. There's more rain to come. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Towards the end of the weekend. So a lot of usable weather if you are out and about this weekend. You can see the blue on the map. That's the cold air we've had today. It starts to be replaced with ever so slightly milder air. It's not going to get warm, it'll be about 14, 15 degrees. But this is the area of low pressure that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So yeah, plenty of fine weather. At the minute, out and about, if you are heading out this evening, blustery, so you probably won't stay up if you do get caught in one of those showers. Those will clear as we head overnight tonight. A weak ridge of high pressure will clear those away and skies will clear. So under a lighter breeze than what we've had today, it will get quite chilly. Inland, we're looking at 1 to 3 degrees, so it'll be colder than that in more rural spots. We are looking at a touch of frost forming. I think for the Isle of Man and coastal parts, you're looking at between 5 and 8 degrees. But plenty of sunshine from the word go. There'll be a chill in the air first thing tomorrow morning. If you are out doing sporty, maybe you're on the sidelines, big coat on and a brew. You'll start to see cloud increasing as you head through the day. And I think for the Isle of Man, for Cumbria and Lancashire, here we are likely to see the odd isolated shower or two, but there will be quite few and far between. A lot of us getting away with a dry day. Temperatures a bit disappointing for this time of year, 11 to 13 degrees, and the winds will be a lot lighter than what we have had. So that takes us through Saturday and overnight into Sunday, another chilly night. As high pressure starts to then clear away, we get this deepening area of low pressure. Now, the timings, exact locations of this low pressure system, a little bit uncertain at this stage. What we're expecting is a dry morning, clouding over and starting to see the rain pushing up from the south as we head later on towards the end of the day. So we could get away with the day being mostly dry. Temperatures 13, 14 degrees, Annabelle.
But we can't say you didn't warn us, because this time last week you stood there and you said it's summer today, it's going to be winter next Friday.
I did.
And sure enough, you're right.
For once. I'm
well
right.
done. You did your job. Well done, love. That's it from us. Have a lovely weekend, whatever you're doing. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I forgot.